Please. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. I'm going to call the Finance Committee to session. We are at the Twinsburg Government Center. Roll call, Mr. Barr.
Here.
Mr. Post.
Mr. Kukowski, is this working?
No,
Here?
sir.
Does that work? Is that on?
I don't hear you.
Here.
And Mr. Bellin is here. All right, any audience participation this evening? Seeing none. Next up on the agenda is the alternative tax budget. Ms. Conway.
Maybe. Okay. Good evening. Let's see if this works this time. All right. So one of the things that Mr. Post, after I had asked what the committee wanted to see, was you don't know what you don't know. So I kind of ran with that idea. And monthly, it is kind of a struggle to come up with information because not a lot changes in the finance world from month to month. But I think today was a good segue because on tonight's council meeting, we have for first reading our tax budget, which is an annual document that needs to be passed. It gets sent to Summit County by July 20th. So you will see in probably your information that Shannon sent, the full document, but I just wanted to go through exactly what it is, what it does, and then how it plays into the other reports that we send you throughout the year. So I know that there's a lot of small information on that slide, so I will go through some of it. So the Ohio Revised Code outlines the tax levy law. It includes various sections, how to establish new funds. Some are required by Ohio Revised Code to be sent to the state auditor. Others are listed in the revised code that they're automatically created. So for example, all of these TIF projects, each of those is going to be a new fund. Now those don't need to be approved by the state auditor because the Department of Development approves them and it's listed in the revised code. So the tax budget will list what revenues can be used for, what your millage limitations are, and it outlines the purpose and the function for what it serves. So there are 6 schedules that comprise the tax budget. We really only deal with 4 of them here. So Schedule 1 lists all your current and new tax levies issued by the city and the estimated property tax that each levy will produce based on assessed property valuation. So I'll get into that a little bit more detail, especially with the property tax assessment evaluation that was done last year. So I know a lot of people were upset that their values went up. On the city side of it, that's good because it creates more revenue for the 3 funds that we receive revenue for. Schedule 2 is a statement of fund activity. So that is you demonstrating your need for property tax. So you have to show how your funds are using it and what your balances are going to be or what you estimate them to be at the end of the upcoming year. So Schedule 3, which we'll get into these, is used by the Budget Commission to create an official estimate of resources for the following year. So once we pass this tax budget, in September, the county will send me a form. I don't know if I brought a copy of it. If anyone wants a copy of it, it looks like this. It lists all of our different funds. It has what we anticipate based on what I submit in the tax budget, what our unencumbered fund balance for all of our funds is going to be starting on January 1st. So all of these items kind of play intertwined with each other. So this will go with our budget. After we pass our budget, I will have to update this with any other revenues that we see, and they will send us updated, we call them cores in the finance world, I guess is the easiest way to say. So every time we do an appropriation amendment that involves any type of revenue change, they'll send us an updated one of these as well. So we keep those and we provide them to the auditors when they request them. And then Schedule 4 shows any debt service payments that the city makes, whether it comes from millage. None of ours come from property tax millage, so we just list them really for informational purposes. So Schedule 1, which you will see in your tax budget legislation tonight, shows the current 3 current tax levies that the city levies to property tax owners. Those are our police pension, our fire pension funds, and the police and fire levy fund, which I think we all know are well versed so far this year in that. So the maximum inside millage, which is allowed by law, is 10 mills. However, in Twinsburg, we are limited to 3, as you know, passed by the voters. So it does significantly limit what you are able to use property tax for. So a mill is $1 for every $1,000 of assessed valuation. Your annual property tax bill is determined by the taxable value of your property multiplied by the rate levied, which includes Summit County, City of Twinsburg, the school district, the library district, the metro parks. So all of those rolled in together, and then they give you what is your effective tax rate if you are a residential or agricultural property. So your taxable value is 35% of the market value for your real property. So just to give you an idea of why Twinsburg is doing so well, the median home price in 2023 was $326,000. So that's very good. With the reassessment last year, we actually got updated values. So what they sent us in September, they updated that. And the total property tax for the entire city's valuation went up around $200 million. So that's significant.
You know what percentage of that? Was it 13, 14%?
I don't have that number available.
Okay, it's just something I was thinking of.
All right. Nope. So if we go back here, police and fire pension funds are each 0.3 mils, and police and fire levy is 2.4 mils. That comprises that 3 mils. Based on the total valuation, which I think was $936 million, we come up to our estimate that what we're going to receive next year, which is around $2.8 million divided by those 3 funds. So this is the breakdown that they give us that we create for the following year. So they do some calculations on their end, which I don't even claim to understand, because they do homestead rollbacks, owner-occupied credits. Those are all things that are done kind of in the background that we don't really need to know. So in order to determine the value the following tax year, you need to see your total property valuation, which on here, I know it's really small, but it's $936 million. Like I said, I think it went up from 740 at their first valuation.
740 to 936.
936, yes.
What does that equate to?
Almost
Like,
200 million.
No, that I can subtract.
So in,
Like when you take the 35% and the this and that, what does that equate to for us, actually?
so it's around $500,000. So like I said, we received 2 valuations. So the valuation looks at 3 classes of taxpayers. You're either residential/agricultural, commercial/industrial, or public utility tangible personal property. So you do receive an effective tax rate, which is a reduced rate if you are residential/agricultural, commercial, industrial. Public utility is taxed at the full tax rate. Sorry for them, just kind of how it goes. And again, like I said, there are deductions granted for non-business properties, owner-occupied homes, homestead reductions, and those are all things that the county handles on their end. So Schedule 2 demonstrates detailed fund activity, which shows our need to levy property taxes. It's required for the general fund for every entity. However, any other funds that you utilize property tax for, you have to do this statement of activity. So the statement of cash that we send out monthly becomes imperative in working with this. So at the end of the year, the statement of cash will show your beginning cash balance and your unencumbered cash balance. You will use those to kind of create your mini budget for the following year. So overall, we have a good understanding of what we're going to spend our money on. Again, like I said, these police pension changes, at this point, we're halfway through the year. I don't anticipate something like that coming for this year at this point, but those will all have effect on these 3 funds, depending on the outcome of that. So the upcoming year budget estimate details what we estimate to collect in revenue for those funds based on the tax that we receive and any anticipated expenses. So this kind of rolls into the beginning of our budget process as well. So, we look at what revenues we anticipate to bring in, but we also look at, how many people are we hiring? What capital expenses are we planning on, what capital things are we planning on purchasing, and what capital expenses have we already pre-committed to? So all of those things play a part into this statement of fund activity, because it really is an estimate on my part of what I think we're going to spend for that upcoming year. So you have to do a detailed listing for the funds that you receive property tax for and the general fund. All of the other funds, you do have to do a mini, I guess, statement of fund activity. You don't have to get into the detail of, like, here's what your beginning balance was, here's what your ending balance was, but you do have to give them an estimate of what you think you're going to take in and what you think you're going to spend, just so they can create that certificate of resources for you. And it really is the beginning rough draft of the budget. So we will start the budget process in July, and because this process is already, in place by that time, it really is like the catalyst to get things moving for the upcoming year.
So Schedule 2 is the fund activity for funds that require property taxes. Schedule 3 is the fund activity for funds that do not require property taxes.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. So Schedule 4 shows any debt service payments made from inside or charter millage, which, again, we don't use any property tax to pay any of our debt funds, but we list this. One, it's good for us to see kind of where our payments lie and what outstanding payments that we have. So in your tax budget tonight, you will see all of the outstanding payments we have. Next year will be the last payment for the Chamberlain water line, so that will be coming off. But, we have the golf course bonds on there. We have all of the Public Works Commission loans that we have, which are all zero interest, which is good. But it'll list, your date of issue, how many years it runs for, or the year that it will mature, how much your principal loan was for, and then what do you need for that upcoming year to make your debt payments. So they want us, it's not necessary for these, but it is a good way to let council know and for us to keep track of, what debt do we have outstanding.
It's nice, just all on one graph like that, to your point. Yeah, this is our monthly, or this is our annual obligation.
Yeah, and it's nice to see when it goes down, too.
Absolutely.
Because you see something and it has a maturity date of, 2052, and you're like, it seems so far, but when your debt payment is, $4,000 that year, it doesn't really, it puts it into perspective.
Right.
So that is part of, that is the tax budget and this purpose that it serves. It does play a role, like I said, with the monthly reports that we send out, because we do use those. Everything is intertwined. Everything that we send to Summit County is intertwined. So every time we do an appropriation amendment, they will send us back something that says, like, you have zero funds that have exceeded your certificate of resources, which they'll cross-reference this. So they're all interrelated. I just wanted to try and give a little bit more detail as to how. I know for me, coming in when I did, it was very confusing, helping work on a tax budget, or, who do I send an appropriation amendment to? So it's nice once you start to understand that everything's interrelated, it makes it easier to, kind of plan your year, and especially helps with, like, the budget process that's going to be upcoming. It's nice to give you guys a little bit of background on, like, how everything weaves together, at least throughout the year. So does anyone have any questions on the tax budget or any of the other reports that, play into that?
My only question is, why is it called, and quote, alternative tax budget versus the tax budget?
So I don't know the whole, I believe that there is a much longer form,
Okay,
that there's more pages that go into it, and
Okay.
the Budget Commission has decided
gotcha.
you can submit this shorter form,
This
and
is
it
the
makes it
short form
probably
tax budget.
easier for
Gotcha.
them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
So there is something, if you go on to Summit County's website, there is a property tax estimator. So they have this nice little form which shows you all of the taxes and, where your tax money goes by district. But honestly, I mean, if you're not a city or a school district, you're not reading this to understand it. So like, if you were to look at the city of Twinsburg, you know, it has your millage rate, which is 3. So county 14, Metro Parks 2, library 2, the school district 72, and what is the joint vocational school district is on there too. So they have 2 mills. So
CVCA, is that what that is? I'm guessing.
CBCA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's CBCA, right?
So I guess for me, the easiest way, I would take, you would take whatever your fair market value is. So let's say your house is $100,000. You'd multiply it by 35%, and then you divide, no, hold on, yes, and then you multiply it by your effective rate, which in Twinsburg, if you're a resident, is 53.2%, or 53.2, divide that by 1,000. So I know it's a little bit complicated when you see it. I think it's on the one slide. It's a little bit easier when you start to do the process. But seeing a huge, you know, chart like this is not really easy for a regular resident to understand. But on their website, they do have a property tax estimator. All you have to do is put in, like, my house is valued at $300,000. You put whatever, if you're Twinsburg, they have Twinsburg, you know, every different district within Summit County. So if you have a $300,000 house in Twinsburg, your taxes are going to be about $5,500 a year. But those tables are constantly updating depending on who passes levies, whether, you know, the property assessment changes. But if someone wanted to go do that, they could go to Summit County's website and do that.
Awesome. Any other comments or questions about the alternative tax budget? All right. Next up is purchasing policies.
All right, so one of the items that I had talked about early in the year that I would like to work on is updating purchasing policies, and I think everyone is well-versed in kind of the staffing issues we've had in finance, so a lot of these things have taken a back seat. So I figured probably the easiest way to approach this is kind of piecemeal at this point. So earlier this year, we did update the competitive bidding threshold to match what the state had changed it to. And there are plenty of other purchasing policies I would like to implement. There's just not enough hours in the day to sit down and do a comprehensive, you know, document for you at this point. So one of the items that you will be seeing later tonight, we are already authorized by the Ohio Revised Code to do it. We just would like it, I guess, memorialized in a form that we're going to use. Is called an equivalency of offering. So what that is it allows the city or any entity, you can purchase from someone who is not the state winning bidder if they offer you an equivalent or better product for less than what the state bid is. So the document that we've included with your packet tonight, it will say, I, Sam Scafidi, offer the city of Twinsburg, you know, whatever product. I attest that I am better or equivalent than the state bid at a lower price. And you sign it and notarize it. It's used by many public entities. It helps to alleviate the cost of having to do competitive bidding. There are a lot of, you know, bidders who win the state bid who are located in Columbus. And, you know, being an entity that you can't easily just send someone down to Columbus or, you know, purchase supplies from XYZ vendor down there, it gives local vendors a better ability to, you know, still have their business frequented without having to go through all of the competitive bidding process. We wanted to make council aware of it, knowing that there is an item on it tonight. I know that I have been told we have done it in the past. I would feel better if we just made you aware that this is something that you were going to see in a more formalized process.
So they're going to be the first one to sign our new form,
Yes.
correct? That's for the upfitting of the police cars.
Police cruisers?
Yeah.
Okay. And so just so I'm clear, that vendor that we or have used in the past, and if I remember correctly, have
Twinsburg company
20
as
or
well.
years of, yeah.
Yeah, they're in
They,
Twinsburg.
they didn't go through the state bidding process? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
And this document allows us?
So well, let me back up. I don't know whether they submitted a bid for the state.
Okay.
They are not the state winning bid.
Okay.
However, the items that they are providing are equivalent or better and at a
And that's what
lower
they're
price.
attesting to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
This is the guy you want to outfit your police car.
Right, yeah.
Without question. He's just, his reputation is basically beyond reproach. Like the mayor said, I mean, he's here in the city of Twinsburg, and, I mean, he's just, yeah,
Okay.
terrific, involved with the shop with the cop stuff locally, and, I mean,
But like she said, as long as he's signing it, he's attesting to it, so then we should be okay.
Okay.
If we have done it before, and I don't remember if we have or not, Bill, I can't recall, but if we have no
If we had
proof
anybody
that.
sign anything or attest anything,
No,
I think
they
we
never
just
had to. This is
chose
new,
to
that's
use-
why she
yeah,
wanted
we
to do
just chose
this.
to use,
Yeah.
we wanted to use,
And
I don't think-
it is authorized by the Ohio Revised Code. To me, I think it's an additional insurance on the city. You know, this company is attesting, hey, we are swearing under oath that we are providing something that's better at a lower cost, and it kind of alleviates from us having to do a lot of background work.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions? Karen?
After sitting on Jedi for a couple years, I know one of their things was minority purchasing. Are there any incentives for the city to make it a priority for minority purchasing?
So that would be something, we kind of talked about a vendor preference is one of these items that we've thrown around. There are a lot of, at the state level, they do like what's called Ohio buys, which is like we try to frequent Ohio businesses, but they do have MBEs, minority business, they do have women-owned business. These are all things that we could do. We just need to have some type of policy in place, you know, affirming that. And right now, we don't have any.
Anybody else? Christina, were you done? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was it.
No. All right. All right. Next up is miscellaneous. Mr. Barr?
nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Post?
Nothing, thank you.
Rest of council? Mr. Scafidi?
No, sir, thanks.
Ms. Conway?
Mr. Post, what would you like to see next?
I don't know what I don't know, right?
You know, it makes my job a little bit harder when I have to guess, but
All right. That said, next meeting date is scheduled for June 25th. Do we need 6 PM, 6:30? Do we know yet?
why don't we set everything for 6:30 until we get to, like, budget time in November?
Okay. All right, so that said, next meeting will be on Tuesday, June 25th at 6:30 PM. With that, I will adjourn the finance meeting at 6:53 PM.